They told me for years there was no money in podcasting. Well, they were all wrong.
Follow-up. If we want expansion on an idea, we're going to ask. If you want inclusion on Trade Talks, we're bringing you on because you're a thought leader in our space. You're a CEO of a Nasdaq listed company. We want to hear what you have to say raw. This is why people are tuning in. We want to hear, okay, you know what? You're a CEO of PayPal, as an example. You're the CEO of, whether it's a Nasdaq listed company or a New York Stock Exchange listed company. If you are running a company like a Twitter, like a Facebook, like a PayPal, like a Walmart, like a Target, I want to hear what you think about the social media space, what you think about commerce, what you think about your industry getting digitized. So while they are coming on with a specific story to tell, how lucky are we to get executives on our show that can talk with an inside point of view on trends? That's the coolest thing. And then, of course, as you and I think about our editorial calendar as it aligns with Financial Literacy Month in April, as an example, we want our focus there. We want our focus in June to really be in the digital asset space with Consensus, with NFT, NYC NFT happening next week, the week of June 20th. And we want to ask those follow-up questions because, to your point before, I don't know what metaverse means. Tell me. Because if I don't know as the talent, I know my audience has that question. And you shouldn't be afraid to ask. It's not, oh, you know, Jill's reporting on digital assets. She should know what this means. Well, no, I don't. And I'm trying to learn and I want my audience to learn. So never be afraid to ask questions. Of course, I do my homework and I do research, particularly in the digital asset space. A lot of things when I riff with, you know, when we have Jeff Kilburg on, we have Russell Rhodes on, we have Mark Sebastian on, and we're riffing about the market and what's happening in real time, what's happening in the options space. Well, that's my background. You know, I could take a look and see what's happening on the tape and what the macro headlines are on the day, and I can go. We just 1, 2, 3, go. But when it comes to newer coverage of mine, I do the research and I want to ask.
Yeah, of course. Like, you know, you have to be curious. I often say, like, you know, don't ask questions you already know the answer to, because your audience is going to tell that you don't care, or the audience is going to know that you already know. Like, I like asking questions that I don't know the answer to. I do podcasts to learn things, like, shocker, right?
Well, I mean, there are some things that you do know. I think you want to, just because you and I know things, and every industry has acronyms, right? So
yeah, for sure.
Most people, when they invest in their 401ks, it goes into a mutual fund. For the most part, if you're putting money away for retirement, you know what a mutual fund is. Now we also have something that's an ETF, which is similar to a mutual fund, but has a lot of differences. So if I have an ETF issuer on the show, and you and I have been covering this, where they're converting mutual funds to ETFs, we know why, but I'm going to ask them, okay, as an investor, if I'm putting money in my 401k, should I go with a mutual fund or should I go with an ETF? I think the average person who's investing wants to know that answer.
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
While you and I have heard this a number of times, we produce over 1,500 hits. We don't have a classic broadcast schedule. So sometimes what you and I have heard, someone catching in, oh, you know what? I never heard of Trade Talks. Let me check out some of those videos. They're hearing it for the first time. We don't have a consistent schedule like that. So
do you think that works to our advantage?
I think it does.
I think it definitely does.
I think it definitely does, because you and I have the freedom of not being on a broadcast schedule. So sometimes, you know, our hits are 5 to 7 minutes, but there are times where if I'm in a good conversation with a guest and I want them to keep going, we could do that. I don't have a producer in my ear telling me to cut to commercial. I also think the way that consumers are acquiring their news is no longer through the TV. Right? I have 3 stepkids. I don't think they've turned on the TV, with the exception of sports, but they consume everything on YouTube, everything on TikTok. And this goes back to the user and content creator economy you and I are always talking about, where you don't need a studio. You don't need an agent. You don't need marketers and promoters. Everyone could create content, and the audience is going to determine what gets the views and what they want to see. And to me, that's really exciting. And I think that we were forward looking in having somewhat of a news-ish kind of show 5 years ago as a marketing tool to support our business units and listings. And now look where we are.
Yeah, you have to keep adapting. You have to keep adapting not only to your audience, but to the things that are out there. Like, I fought against TikTok forever because I don't get it. I hate doing things on my phone like that. But, you know, I created TikTok for Ambiguous podcast a few weeks ago, and boom, It's bigger than anything I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's weird saying, well, this is the most views I've ever gotten anything I ever created, and I posted it and it's been 3 hours. Like, it's crazy. Like, that's where the people are. You gotta cater to where the people are. And the question I like to ask people, how do you consume content? That's your answer, different from my answer, different from Christian's answer, different from everyone else's answer, your kids' stepkids' answer, your husband's answer. Everyone consumes content differently. So you got to cater to all those different things. Like, yes, we're on YouTube. We go live to YouTube. Is YouTube like live like that, huge like that in the middle of the afternoon? Probably not. But the replay value is still there. Right. Our audience is all on Twitter. Is live streaming to Twitter typically the best idea for most people? No, probably not. But for us, somehow it works.
Right. And I also actually I had this question asked to me when we were at the conference at Consensus, and where can we find you? And it said Twitter, everywhere. YouTube, LinkedIn, Nasdaq.com. And the platform that's your bread and butter is so key, because when we first started Trade Talks, it was distributed through Facebook. And I remember telling our head of social media at the time that Facebook is not a trader's audience. They might go there and see, find out where their high school and college friends are now, or look at cat videos or whatever. Our audience are the traders that are scanning Twitter headlines, that are searching ticker symbols to see what the latest news is. Our distribution and our engagement skyrocket after that. Like, no one is going to Facebook for what you and I produce. We're dipping our toes a little bit via Mother Nasdaq social media on TikTok. And last week, in fact, 2 of our videos were one of the top 5 performers on TikTok. So the social editing team, they were able to hear, okay, this is what the TikTok audience cares about. And that's what worked. Twitter works for us.
Yep.
Instagram for us, Facebook for us. Our audience is looking at that on the commute, or maybe over the weekends, or doing some shopping, but they're not coming to that for news. They're going to Twitter for the headlines. And even when we were at the conference, our top performing hit last year was with Chainlink. And we weren't able to sync on an interview for Consensus, but the PR team came over and spoke to me, and they're like, we'll definitely get something scheduled for June or July in New York, because out of all the distribution channels, you guys go straight to Twitter. That is our audience.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look, especially in digital asset space, our content does the best because they're all engaging there. If we were to stream our content from Consensus on Facebook, I don't think anyone there even goes on Facebook.
Yeah.
So it all depends what works best for you. Now, if you're a brand, a consumer brand, Facebook is probably going to work for you better. So I think finding your bread and butter and really putting your resources into that is where you want to be. And then repurposing that, to your point, to another platform where you think it might play well to test.